today's episode, I'm joined by Catheryn Li, co-founder and CEO of Simple AI, to talk about how AI is changing the game in personal productivity and real estate. From smartphone calls to scalable support, we're diving into what's next for AI in business. Tune in. Are you a real estate agent eager to unlock the power of AI to boost your productivity and scale your business? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Real Estate AI Flash, the weekly podcast that takes AI from a buzzword to a business tool, making it approachable and actionable for agents like you. I'm your host, Rajiv Sajja, and each week I interview agents from across the country who are using AI to transform their careers. Join us on this journey to become an AI skilled agent and take your real estate career to the next level. Now let's get to this episode. Welcome to another episode of Real Estate AI Flash. And today I have a very special guest. Typically, I have agents from across the country talking about how they're using AI. Today, I think I have a thought leader who's building AI apps for personal productivity, and we're going to get into some of the real estate stuff potentially that has application for it. And I have Catheryn Li, who is the CEO and co-founder of Simple AI, an app for personal productivity that I thoroughly enjoy, and several people that have heard the show and seen my keynotes seem to enjoy it as well. So Kat, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. You know, I met your other co-founder not too long ago, and you and I connected. And I think what you're doing is a great way of applying AI to get rid of tasks that you don't want to do. I'm sure we'll get into some of that stuff. But for people that don't know, I mean, you're an MIT grad, computer science grad,
Yeah,
and
I
then
studied.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead
I
and
actually,
let the audience share your backstory.
yeah, well, first, thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be here. I have a background in computer science, like you were mentioning. I actually have a double major in computer science and math from MIT. And then I spent a few years in software engineering. So right out of grad, I worked at Facebook for a year and a half. I worked on the core Facebook newsfeed and then went to Instagram stories for a few months. And
Yeah.
so my heart is really in consumer. I care so much about working on things that I can look at and care about.
Yeah, and it shows. It shows with our brief conversations we've had and the way you built your app. So, you know, you probably, since you studied at MIT, AI has been in our lives working in the background for a long time before Gen AI, right? But this whole movement that ChatGPT and OpenAI started late 2022, what was your first like light bulb moment of Gen AI?
Yeah, so it's like you said, AI has been around for a while. Although before LLMs, I think a lot of AI research was in more decisional based stuff. Things like having AI play games and be good at those, like your chess, your Go, stuff like that was really popular. It was really in 2022 when OpenAI released ChatGPT is when LLMs really became really popular. For me, that still wasn't the light bulb moment. I thought that was cool, but it didn't really impact my life. For me, it was so after Facebook, I went to work at Y Combinator, YC for short. They're the best accelerator in the world for startups, and I spent 4 years running a software team at YC. For me, the light bulb moment was really being able to use Gen AI tools to code faster, like way
Mhm.
faster and way better. I think before that, a lot of coding work was around, like remembering things and then Googling things and looking things up, little things on Stack Overflow and syntax and stuff. And ever since Gen AI tools, so like, Microsoft's Copilot, and Cursor, of course, Codium, all these
Yeah.
tools, you don't need to care about any of that anymore. There's no language barrier. So even if your experience is in, let's say, Python, somehow now magically you can write JavaScript, you can write Ruby, and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and interesting you bring that up. I mean, that's why we're seeing a lot of this no code solutions, right? I mean, everybody can be a coder without having background of coding. And so, so talk to us about the genesis of Simple AI, and we'll include the link to the app in the show notes. Currently, it's only on iOS, but Android is coming. I hear, right? You guys are working
Yeah,
on it.
that's great.
Every meeting I go to, there'll be like 5 Android users that raise their hand that it's coming. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But so talk to us about the genesis of why you picked personal productivity and Simple AI came to being.
Yeah, so like I said, I worked at YC for 4 years. While I was there, I really saw so many founders and different startups come through YC. I was really, really interested in AI. It was just like this crazy revolution. And I think there was just this energy, and you knew that it was going to change the world. But for me personally, I wasn't seeing a lot of AI being applied to consumer stuff. I was seeing a lot of, AI being applied to various verticals and industries. But I wasn't seeing anyone working on consumer. And so I was really excited about that. My background, even at YC, I was working on software for consumers. So things like our startup library, our co-founder matching site. Before that, I worked on Instagram stories and I worked at Quizlet. And so I care a lot about consumer products. And so I wanted to take this really cool AI technology and bring it into everybody's lives. Um, the way that Simple started actually was meant to be a personal assistant.
Yeah.
I met my co-founder at YC. His name is Zach Cameron, and we left together to start personal assistant for consumers. That was the first idea. And so our initial app could do 20 things. It could, read your email, and it could like help you text people. It could book your Ubers and try to get restaurant reservations and all this. And it could do 20 things, but I think as a two-person team, you quickly learn that it's really hard to build 20 things and make them really good. And so we were kind of thinking about we should focus on one thing and make that work really well. And the one thing that people were really, really excited about was Simple's ability to make phone calls for you.
Yeah.
And I think that is because it is such a newly enabled idea. Before AI and even before like the new voice AI technology, that was not possible. You couldn't do that. If you wanted someone to make your phone calls, you'd have to pay an assistant to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is this like incredible net new technology that we've introduced, and people love it. Now you can have it like call restaurants to make reservations for you. You can have it call your doctor. You can call insurance companies, call your bank, and all this stuff that people don't want to wait on the phone for.
Yeah. So let's double click into some of I mean, I've used the app a little bit. I have people that I've talked about that have used the app for all really cool things. One of my boss actually started using it for ordering food, and he called me on a
Amazing.
Friday night and he said, "Rajiv, I used it to prank my friends, closest five kids." We're not suggesting you do that, but obviously it's an AI voice agent, so
I
it can do
love
that.
that.
But some of the things that I think, practically AI gives you the gift of time if you can actually apply it. And most people don't like to do these mundane things that you can have the personal assistant do. And your app does it extremely well, right? So the base app, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, 30 calls a month. It can do 30 tasks. Is that fair? Is that right?
Yeah, so we're actually giving out 20 free calls a month. The
20.
free
Okay.
tier comes with 20 calls to businesses and unlimited calls to your friends.
Oh, okay. That's good. Good clarity. I appreciate that. So,
Yeah.
and you're also moving towards a business version. So we'll talk about that in some real estate use cases. So some of the things that I feel real estate agents do a lot of is prospect,
Mhm.
right? When you have let's say I'm listing your home for sale, I might want to announce that sale to certain prospective buyers, etc., potentially. There's a lot of applications for AI voice agents, which is what you're really kind of zoning in on.
Yeah.
We're looking at building agents for our company, not real estate agents, since that's, again, people get confused, but AI agents that you can deploy based on need on
Yeah.
specific verticals. And I think the point you made is so well taken, because I think a lot of people, when you go on a startup, it's hard to go wide. I think you should find an area and go so deep that you become the unicorn in
Yeah.
that field, right? I mean, think about Perplexity. It's like a unicorn for search. We'll see how long that lasts. But yes, right? It's going vertical. So talk to me about your business product that obviously you talked about that your calls come from 415 since you're based in California,
Yeah.
right? So let's talk about how we can personalize it in the business version that you're launching, I guess, soon.
Yeah, so the business version is actually super interesting. We've already launched it and been piloting with some of our customers. The really cool thing about the business version is it wasn't really like a magical idea I had, but rather we launched this consumer product, and then it turns out a lot of our users are either small business owners or they're a leader in some other company that could use the technology. And so I was getting tons of inbound from customers saying like, "Hey, I love your voice. It's super cool. I had it do X, Y, and Z. I had it wait on hold for 50 minutes. I had it." Someone actually told me that they had it call 12 dealerships to ask for a specific car model and make, and then negotiated it And then they sent me a picture of them buying the car, which was super, super cool.
You mean Simple AI negotiated the deal
Yeah.
on the phone?
Simple called multiple car dealerships for him at the same
This is
time and
crazy.
negotiated a car, and then he went and bought it and sent me a picture. And that was just like such a cool moment to
Crazy.
see our user, like
Negotiating cars is never fun anyway, as you know. I mean, like
yeah,
anytime you bought a car, yeah, exactly. So it's good,
yeah.
good stuff.
Sorry, that was a tangent.
Yeah, no, no,
Um,
good.
all to say that a bunch of our users then inbounded me basically saying like, "Hey, your voice is really cool. Can I use it for my business actually?" And so they really drew that product out of us. And we were thinking, well, we built all this really cool calling infrastructure anyway, and we have this AI voice agent technology. So it makes so much sense. Like businesses have a lot more repeatable use case for having an agent. And so we've been launching 2 months ago. We have a bunch of people using us for things like customer support, for leads qualification, uh, for following up, with XYZ, and even logistics.
Yeah, so most agents are usually solo agents, and some of the successful ones have teams. They have a group of people, but they all have a client base, a sphere, whether it's close friends, family, which is where they start, but they also generate leads online. Like you and I
Mhm.
talked about when we had the call before, was a company of our size, we have leads that our website generated that nobody's really following up on beyond the drip campaigns that nobody really looks at,
Yes,
right? But warming them up with phone calls, and even if 1% warm up and become a transaction, that's 1% you never had, right?
exactly.
Because you don't have the manpower to call. My question also is, if I have 100 people that I want to invite for a client appreciation party, there's a lot of realtors listening to this pod. So I could have simple call on my behalf. I'm the digital assistant for Rajiv. He's hosting a client appreciation party. That's where the business version is going. Is that accurate?
Absolutely, yes. So there are a couple ways people are using the business software now. Um, People basically have two different kinds of needs. One is outbound phone calls and one is inbound. So for outbound calls, the consumer app, you would just kind of tell it like, please call this number and do this thing for me.
Yeah.
For the business version, you can upload a list of contacts. And so you can have like the phone number, their names, any other variables you care about, and then just call all of them the same way you would make like an email campaign or a text campaign, only now it's a call campaign.
Yeah.
So we'll go and call a bunch of people at once. And then once someone doesn't answer or we finish the call, we move on to the next person. And we'll do, like 20 or 30 in parallel, depending on how much um, concurrency you have. But
Yeah.
yeah, you can think of it as like your typical email campaign, but much more effective because you're actually talking to someone on the phone.
So how much workflow can you build in? So let's dig in a little bit to the real estate side of things, right? So if I have 100 leads that were inactive from like 3 years ago, and I know the address they inquired on, each lead, 121 Main Street, 117 Main Street, whatever, could I personalize it and say, hey, Kat, it looks like you inquired about 121 Main Street 3 years ago. I'm assuming you're a homeowner now. Could we help you with a home equity report? Like really personalized workflow per call. Is that possible on the business
Yes,
version?
100%. So when you're working in our site, the way that you define the agent, you can configure how it behaves, how it talks, like what kind of tone you want it to speak with. You can tell it about kind of the company's background and values and whatever else you care about. And then the cool thing is you can add variables which are not defined at the time of the prompt, but you pass in later on through all your contacts. So for example, you can have a variable called first name, and then a variable called address, and then a variable called, I don't know, region, like where they
Yeah,
want to
city,
live or
whatever.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you would put in those variables, and then when you go and upload your list of contacts, you would just have a column for each variable. So like first name, Rajiv, and then address, whatever, whatever.
yeah.
And then those will get populated into the prompt when we're calling that person.
That's amazing. So talk to me about your pricing for your business plan. Obviously, the simple basic plan, 20 free phone calls to businesses and unlimited to friends. What's the pricing for the business plan?
Yeah, so for business, we charge by usage rather than having like a specific subscription. And the way it works is you pay a monthly fee and then we give you a certain number of calling minutes that you're able to use for that month.
Yeah,
Um, and then basically, the more minutes you purchase, the less it costs per minute. Does that
yeah.
make sense?
Okay. So in terms of phone numbers, like obviously you're based in California, so the free one comes from 415.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about customization of voice, and you mentioned tone. Like
Yeah,
I can clone my voice with 11 Labs. Is that something that I, make it really personal? I mean, talk to me a little bit about some of the customization in business.
for sure. Yeah. So two things you mentioned there, phone number and voice. Let's talk about phone number. So when you're using the consumer mobile app, we do have a number that we're calling from. When you buy this business subscription, we actually register your business under a new phone number. So every business customer is not using the same phone number through us when you're making the call. You can either give us a number that you already have if you want to port one, or we can buy one for you at basically whatever area code you want. And then we'll just register your business information so that when you make the call, the caller ID shows up as your business instead of like spam likely or some random thing.
Okay, nice, nice. And do you have a pricing for your business on the base plan that you've landed on?
Yeah, so the smallest plan is going to be $100 a month, and that comes with 400 minutes of calling time.
Okay. It's almost like having a receptionist on the beck of call. I mean, like actually having doing stuff. And so, especially for businesses of any kind, I think this makes a ton of sense. Talk to me a little bit about we talked a little bit about outbound before we
Mhm.
sort of wind down the podcast. I'd love to talk a little bit about the inbound use cases you're seeing, right? So
Yeah,
there's several real estate offices have someone picking up the phone, which is another area I felt like this is
yeah.
definitely going to be reinvented with AI. So talk to me about inbound.
Yeah, inbound is actually our biggest use case.
Is that right?
So a lot of people are using it for both customer support and leads qualification. Those are kind of the biggest categories right now. For inbound, what's really cool is it can be available 24/7. You don't need to have, someone handling phone numbers or phone calls from 9 to 5. Um, so it's available 24/7. And what is really cool about it is that it scales dynamically. So, for example, what we've seen is that companies that have an existing call center staff, the issue they have is calls don't come in evenly distributed throughout the week. Some
100%.
days of the week, they get more calls, and even within one day, some hours of the day, they get more calls. And so the problem with staffing is if you don't staff enough, then during those peak hours, then people have to wait really long time to even get a person on the phone, or they even just drop calls. Like people might give up, they call in and then they don't get to anyone. Um, but if you staff up enough to handle the peak hours, then you're underutilizing your staff the entire rest of the week. So this is a huge problem that people have. And what's cool about AI is we can dynamically scale. So whatever someone's calling, we can just pick up, and it's no problem.
Yeah. So in that case, so let's say you have a single office firm, like you have somebody that pick up the phone on the main number. We can build in logic to the inbound calling where it actually, let's say there's 15 people working in the office. It can route the calls, do all of those things, I'm assuming, right? Inbound. It can do that piece also.
Yeah, it can definitely do that. We have built-in warm transfers as well. And so one really common way people use our product is they'll have the AI enter the phone, say like, "Hey, this is Aaron. How can I help you?" And if they are a new customer, we might go through some qualification rules, so asking a few questions about them. And if they do qualify, then at that point we can transfer to a human agent to actually finish the sales
Yeah.
or, do whatever else is complex.
Yeah, this is fascinating stuff. Maybe I mean, we'll put a link in the show notes. Is there how does somebody get to the business version and upgrade from the basic
Yeah.
version?
So you would actually have to email or text me right now.
Or
We are,
maybe we include a code cat for podcast listeners. They get maybe like a little bit off, you know.
yeah, for sure. We can do that.
Yeah, we'll
Um,
put a link in the show notes for sure.
okay, that sounds great.
Yeah. This is awesome. So this is fascinating. I think calling services is definite. I think it's a key application for AI vertical wise. So I appreciate your work in this regard. And you're a two-person team. Is that what you said?
That's right. We are two people right now, and that's also why we focused more on making sure the product is really good and less on things like self-serve sign up and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Truly bootstrapped in terms of a
Yeah.
startup. Yeah, that's
And to answer
awesome.
your previous question, I know we forgot about it, but yes, you can customize the voice. We have a few different options you can choose from, and you can pay a little bit extra if you would like to clone your own voice. We do
Oh,
support that.
okay. Okay. Are you connected to 11 Labs, or you have your own way of cloning the voice?
So we've played around with a lot of different voice AI models. We have used 11 Labs before, but right now we really like Cartesia.
Okay.
Their latency is just way better. And on the phone, it matters a lot. If it takes, a second for someone to respond, then it doesn't sound real at all.
Yeah.
So we
That's
care a lot.
awesome. That's awesome. So I'm going to ask you one question that we didn't even prep for, but I want to kind of see where we go with AI. Like people, one of the things that people are saying, where is the world of AI taking us? Is the world ready for Gen AI? Because I feel like the speed of transformation is going at warp speed.
Yeah.
By the time we
Yeah, there's not
record
enough
this
to
and
come
when
out.
we release it, the models are being updated daily. Like yesterday, Gemini 2.5 off the charts,
No,
ChatGPT
literally
image
every single
generation, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure you see a lot more being in Silicon Valley than I ever would, with really having a vested interest in learning AI. So where do you think AI will take us as a society?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question because there's so many different facets of like what AI really means as well. I will say that it is transforming super, super quickly. But for the oldest industries, as usual, it does take some time to actually, use the new technology. But for companies that are looking at the forefront of AI, it is completely transforming how they work. People
Yeah.
are becoming more efficient. AI is doing lots of jobs now. It's doing software or helping people do software. It's helping with design, it's helping with operations, with sales, with almost anything you can think of. And so I think the world will look completely different in 5 years.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a big believer that if you know it properly and learn the skills, it'll amplify human intelligence,
Absolutely.
right?
What we're seeing is that a lot of customers are less interested in cutting costs and more interested in using the same resources they have to get way more output.
Way more done. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, fascinating times, sometimes when you're going through transformative times, you don't know that you're going through it till you look back on it,
But not in this case.
exactly,
It's so
exactly.
obvious.
Yeah, yeah. So keep up the good work, you and your co-founder. And I'm glad we connected. I don't even know how I found out about Simple AI. I was thinking when I was getting ready for this podcast, how did I ever get used to this app or know about it? So I got connected. I
Yeah.
think maybe I connected with your co-founder on LinkedIn or
Were
something.
you following YC or maybe Twitter?
Yeah, I found it somewhere. Anyway, I'm glad our paths crossed. So
Yeah,
as we wrap up the podcast, I'd love for I don't know if are you a podcast person or are you a book person or Audible?
I'm more of a book person, but I do listen to a couple podcasts.
Okay, so if there's one or two that have really influenced your journey that listeners should tune
Yeah.
into, what would that be, Kat?
So I don't know if this is going to be super relevant for your audience because I don't come from a real estate background and I don't listen to real estate podcasts. But the one I would really, really recommend is YC's Light Cone podcast. I love it. If you haven't listened to it already, basically a few of the YC group partners sit around at a table and talk about what's coming in AI these days, what they're seeing in the startups that they work with. And because they've worked with thousands of startups, they're able to draw a lot of interesting patterns through them.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll put a link to the that podcast in the show notes. I want to check it out as well. So this has been fun, Kat. I appreciate you taking the time to join our podcast. And I think real estate, and personally, I feel real estate agents are all like solo entrepreneurs, right? They're entrepreneurs at the finest level of entrepreneurship in the country, really.
Yeah,
And it's hard to reinvent large companies. And in my mind, AI is an affordable leverage for a real estate agent if they get the skill of using it and how to become and scale their business much faster than a company that has thousands of employees. Because it's hard to change
absolutely.
the culture from ground up, right?
That makes so much sense. And we're seeing that in tech as well. Like startups now can be so much more productive and have so much leverage compared to a really big startup and even compared to 5, 10 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. This has been fun, Kat. I appreciate you, and I'm sure we'll keep track of your progress, and we'll put all the links in the show notes. And have a great day, Kat.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Rajiv.
You made it to the end. Nice. My goal with this podcast is to elevate your AI skills every week. If you found value in the show, your goal is to follow, share with a fellow agent, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and leave us a review as it helps us reach more agents like you.